So my business is where I take animals around to schools, care homes. I do birthday parties with the animals that I have. And the main focus is that my animals are rescued. They've all come from situations where people don't want them or people may have mistreated them. And yeah, that's my business.
And you go into, as you say, you go into schools, to care homes, to anyone who wants to meet the animals.
Yeah,
really.
That's right. Anybody that'll have me. The only thing that I'm unable to do right now is sort of fates and open days, just because I can't police the amount of people that will be touching my animals at any one time. But other than that, it's fairly open. I offer therapy sessions particularly to elderly residents in care homes. They may have not seen an animal for a long time. They may have had animals when they're younger. Particularly Alzheimer's people that have Alzheimer's, they can't remember what they had, and a rabbit can give so much pleasure. It is quite nice to see.
Sam, we're in your shed, which is the most unique shed I've ever been in, I think. I don't think you'd see this when you're driving past on the main road. Tell us about what we can see in front of us, probably starting at the top, if that's okay.
So in the box up here we've got Madagascan hissing cockroaches. Best surviving living thing in the world, if you want to have a look.
We'll have a look, yeah, we'll have a look.
Madagascan hissing cockroaches, particularly these guys, it's us that are dirty, unfortunately, and because they will literally eat anything, that's why people associate them with dirt or disease.
Yeah.
They're actually, if you look, they're very, very clean animals. This is a male.
Wow.
They're very, very clean animals. As you can see, they have hairy legs, this particular species, because they don't have wings, they can't fly.
Right.
So they can, when they want to, hold on upside down. It's not playing that, there you go.
Amazing.
So when they're frightened or when they're upset, they hiss. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get them to do it because they're so friendly.
Yeah, no, that's...
They won't hiss anymore, but it's called mimicking. One of their main predators are birds. If a bird were to come over and hear the hiss, they'd think there was a snake close by. Wow. And thus leaving the cockroach alone. One of the most amazing facts about these guys is that if you chop their head off, they can live for up to 2 weeks without their head. They don't breathe like we do through our nose and our mouth. They breathe through tiny little holes down the side of their body called spiracles.
And so, obvious question then, do they have a brain? Do they have
They have a nervous system, but not essentially a brain.
Right.
So they also have, if you look at if the head were to be chopped off, if you look at their bottom, they've got two tiny sort of antennae, and they're called sensory pins. So although they can't feel where they're going if they don't have a head, they can feel where they've been. So the box below it, what's in there? These are leopard geckos or fat-tailed geckos, depending on what you want to call them. Obviously leopard because they have leopard print, but fat-tailed because they store all their nutrients and their fat in their tail. If they weren't to be able to come across food or there was no food available, they would use all the energy out of their tail to be able to continue living.
And you must be so in the routine of feeding them and cleaning them. And
so every morning from about 7 AM, come down and do the health checks and the feeding. If there's any animals that require medication or anything like that, but they all have different foods. We have a fridge over there and various other bits and bobs to keep all the food fresh. And then in the evening, that's when we feed the nocturnal ones.
We've got mice next door.
That's right,
right?
They're mice. You can have a look at a quick mouse if you like.
I'll have a look at a mouse. I probably won't be holding this one, I don't.
So one thing I forgot to mention was that all my animals are rescued.
Yeah.
They've all come from situations where people don't want them or people may have mistreated them.
Right.
And the mice came to me from a lady that just didn't have the room and gave them me as 6 females. But unfortunately one of them was male.
No.
And each of the females had 6 babies.
So have you kept all of those?
They're all separate now, so we've got males in one tank and females in another.
Right, so we go on. So we've got reptiles below.
Yeah, it's a bearded dragon.
Bearded dragon.
These guys are quite happy to be handled. He's shedding his skin at the minute, which is why we've got little loose bits.
Yeah.
But as you can see, it's a nice pale colour, which indicates that it's the correct temperature. He's quite happy. When a bearded dragon goes dull or dark, particularly under the chin, it shows aggression.
Oh, really?
Or that he's seen a girl that he likes.
Right, okay, so that could go 2 ways,
Good, yeah. So the geckos eat creepy crawlies, so like mealworms, locusts, small crickets. These guys, they eat a mixture of fresh fruit and vegetables.
Right.
Loves curly kale, loves strawberries, blueberries, that kind of thing. But then he eats these creepy crawlies as well.
Really?
And each of them have to be dusted with calcium, which is what I was talking about earlier, so that it keeps his bones nice and strong, his tail nice and straight, stops him from getting poorly. And
do we know how old he is?
He's about 6.
Right.
It's impossible to say unless I was there when he was born, obviously because my animals are rescued, it is impossible to say. But I've had him for about 5.5 years and he was only a baby when I got him.
Wow.
He used to be aggressive, but I spent a lot of time making him calm and he's really chilled out now.
And when you say used to be then, have you had some nips along the way?
I have, yeah. When bearded dragons bite, if you can see their teeth, they're like little razors just at the side there.
Oh yeah.
Can you see? And they don't pierce as such, they lacerate. So you'd end up with sort of paper cuts as opposed to piercing.
So what do we have in here?
So he's a plated lizard. So you saw on the bearded dragon it's got scales.
Yeah.
This one's got almost like roof tiles.
Wow. You mentioned rescue a couple of times as well. Where are you rescuing these animals from? And
so they come to me from people who may notice me at a birthday party or see me on a show and say, oh, I've got this, would you be interested? Or somebody will tag me in something on Facebook. And generally, if I have space, I keep them. But I've had to be a bit more strict because of the coronavirus. This is Incy. She's a Chilean rose tarantula. Quite a few differences between tarantulas and spiders. Tarantulas don't run, they don't jump, and they can't climb.
Yeah.
Whereas a spider can do all of the above. She's obviously covered in a lot of hair as well.
Yeah.
This is her head, which is here. This pink part. It's called a cephalothorax. And then this is her abdomen. And that's where it's like her belly and her bottom all in one.
Right.
And the tiny little, see those there? They're called spinnerets, and she's actually doing it at the minute. She's spinning a web.
And is that a good sign, a bad sign?
She's quite comfortable. When they're frightened or when they're upset, the first thing that they would do is they'd flick hairs off their abdomen.
Right.
As if to say, look, leave me alone, I'm not particularly happy today. The next thing they'd do is they'd lift their front, they're called pedipalps, they're like arms, and they'd lift those up to show you their teeth.
Wow.
And then finally they would bite if they were feeling particularly aggressive. She's quite chilled out. My daughter, she's 4 and she holds her.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is quite openly... First time I've been nervous, I think, doing this. I don't know if I prefer... Is it a him or a her?
She's a girl.
Her to walk around or whether to stand still. But you were saying earlier she's just sussing it out.
Yeah,
She's
exactly.
just sensing
So
it.
that's why she's lifting her legs up, just to make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah.
But she's quite comfortable.
For you, I mean, I know you're obviously qualified and trained and you do this as a job, but is there a sense of trepidation when you have a child at a school perhaps that you hand a tarantula over to, or...?
So in my head I do a bit of an assessment first.
Right.
If the children are screaming, shouting, running around, then the tarantula doesn't get out.
Right.
And I go through rules with the adults and the children first and explain to them, look, the animals are here primarily because they're rescued, they need to be cared for. I need certain rules to happen in order for me to be able to get my animals out.
Yeah.
And it's really simple, so don't put your hands in your mouth, stay sat on your bottom and don't scream.
Yeah.
And so it's quite, the rules that everybody counts to adheres to them. And I think, so you were talking about children, I also visit care homes as well. And quite a lot of staff are sometimes worried that residents may squeeze.
Right.
Obviously through no fault of their own, but I always allow them to hold it on the back of their hand.
Yeah.
Because they can't squeeze with the back of their hand. So they still get the opportunity to have a hold,
Yeah.
but they obviously don't put my animals' lives at risk.
Does the novelty wear off for you when you walk in this shed?
Not at all, not at all. No, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I love my animals.
We have a variety of other bits and bobs as well. We have
I've got a tortoise, yeah, I've got a tortoise. Sadly, what tends to happen is when people get animals, they don't realise how long they live for. And this particular species can live between 80 and 100 years.
Wow.
So it's obviously a lifelong commitment. Years and years ago, people used to have them in the garden and thought that was enough. On a day like today, that would be brilliant, because it's a really hot day. But obviously when it's getting to winter, people need to put them in vivariums, don't have a vivarium, or they want to sell it for something else, and it tends to happen that I end up with the animal. But surprisingly, they eat just a mixture of fresh greens and fruit and vegetables. One of his favourites are strawberries.
We've got a corn snake on the move down here.
This, for obvious reasons, is called Mr. Wrigley.
Lovely underbelly.
He's beautiful, yeah, underbelly. It's beautiful colours.
Yeah, amazing colours.
So, final section here, we've just got 3 cages of guinea pigs, one with a small rat in and 1 rabbit. And again, all come to me from people that just don't want them anymore, particularly this girl here.
And what about you? You know, you look after all these animals. Where does your passion, where does your knowledge come from?
So I did an animal care course a long time ago when I was 16. I have a national diploma in animal care, and other than that, it was just hobbies. So, like I said, the information that I retain is because I enjoy it so much. You don't need a qualification to do what I do, but it certainly helps.
Yeah.
It certainly helps to know your stuff. Obviously, 'cause if I was going to a show and don't really know anything about the animals, it's not going to look good, is it?
No, not at all. The big question is, how do you get anything done?
organised. I am quite organised. I'd like to think I was anyway.
What goes down as the favourite when you are out and about?
Probably the skunk.
Really?
Yeah, she's kind of the pièce de résistance. She's the one that everybody will hold.
Right.
So you tend to find when you do a show that some people don't like snakes or spiders, or they won't like hold anything, and as soon as Poppy the skunk comes out, everybody's having a cuddle. So I'd like to think there is something for everybody in my little collection.
Absolutely, there's definitely a variety here. And you call it a collection. How long has it taken to bring this set of animals together?
This particular set I probably had for the last maybe 5-6 years altogether.
So if someone was to book you or to ask you to come to their facility, what can they expect?
So upon booking, we'd go through how many people were going to be there, etc. And what I'd do is I'd take a selection of the animals. So there'd be anything from creepy crawlies to lizards and snakes to cute, fairy and cuddly. As a general rule, what would happen is people would sit in a foyer, sort of a lounge area, for example, in a circle, or at a birthday party, the kiddies just generally be on the floor. And then myself and Billy, and my apprentice, would be there. And it's a bit of a show and tell to start with. A bit of a guessing game. Tell them why we're there, and then make everybody guess what I've brought. And then we get the animals out, and then they all get to have a cuddle and a bit of information about them as well.
For anyone who's perhaps slightly scared or trepidation or doesn't know whether they want to book you, what would you say to try and convince them?
There isn't anything to be frightened of. As you've seen today, all of my animals are perfectly healthy and safe primarily. And I'd never ever bring an animal out that had ever shown any sign of aggression. So well, just give it a go. You've got nothing to lose really.